When UMass chose to move from the FCS level up to the FBS level, the timing fell off. They were coming off a stretch where they were not one of the top FCS programs in the nation and looked to be on the decline. Rather than make the move after losing the 2006 FCS Championship game, they chose to wait 6 years. Since they moved to the FBS level, they have left and returned to the MAC. They have a record of 24-112, have never had a winning season, and have scorned both fans and students, destroying any type of tradition and culture for football Saturdays. This is how UMass became the worst FBS program. This is the story of the worst decision ever made in college football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football and spring league football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who your favorite college football team is in the comment section below. The University of Massachusetts football began on November 22, 1879, beating Amherst College's freshman team 4-0. They would join Storrs Agricultural College, now known as the University of Connecticut, and Rhode Island College of Agriculture and Mechanical Arts, now the University of Rhode Island, to form the Athletic League of New England State Colleges, with the goal to schedule football games with each other. UMass would win their 100th football game on October 2, 1920, when they beat UConn 28-0. Vic Fuscia would become head coach in 1961 and led them to their third undefeated season and first since 1989 in 1963, when they went 8-0-1. Fuscia would also have seasons with an 8-2 record, 7-2 record, 6-3 record, and 7-2 record. Over the next few seasons, would have 2 losing seasons in 3 years, and that would lead to his dismissal as head coach. He finished with a record of 59-32-2. Dick MacPherson would take over as head coach next, after being a former UMass assistant in the late 1950s and was coaching the Denver Broncos linebackers and defensive backs at the time. MacPherson would put together a 45-27-1 record, winning 4 Yankee Conference titles and making it to the quarterfinals of the Division II playoffs in 1977, before leaving for the Cleveland Browns to serve as their linebacker coach. He would later go on to coach at Syracuse, leading them to an 11-0-1 record in 1987 and a 10-2 record in 1988, and has since been inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Bob Pickett would be promoted to replace MacPherson after serving as the team's defensive coordinator since 1971. Pickett would lead UMass to the Division I AA championship game in his first season, where they would lose to Florida A&M 35-28. Pickett would win 4 conference titles and finished with a 36-28 record, but was fired after back-to-back losing seasons in 1982 and 1983. Over the next 13 seasons, the Minutemen would find some success under Bob Stoll, Jim Reed, and Mike Hodges, but were mediocre for the most part. Then came the arrival of Mark Whipple. Whipple had been the head coach in New Haven and Brown. While at New Haven, he put together a 48-17 record, leading them to the semifinals of the Division II playoffs in 1992 and the quarterfinals in 1993. At Brown, he had a 24-16 record, starting his tenure there with a 7-3 record and ending with a 7-3 record, while having back-to-back 5-5 seasons in between. In Whipple's first season as head coach at UMass, he would lead the Minutemen to a 12-3 record and won the Division I AA championship, which was the football program's only national title in its history. In 6 seasons, he would go 49-23 and led them to 3 Athletic 10 conference titles. He would leave to coach the pros following the 2003 season. UMass would bring in Northeastern head coach Don Brown, who was Whipple's defensive coordinator for the national title team and 2 of his 3 conference title winning teams. Brown would find a lot of success putting together a 43-19 record, which was the best 5-year period in school history. He would win 2 conference titles and led them to the Division I AA championship in 2006, where they would lose to App State 28-17, and the quarterfinals in 2007. After a 7-5 season in 2008, Brown would leave to take the Maryland defensive coordinator position and was replaced by Kevin Morris. Morris would go 16-17 as head coach during his tenure, and during it, they announced that they would be moving up to the FBS level from the FCS on April 20th, 2011. This had been something the university had studied for decades, and there was always speculation around the decision being made, but the timing was just off for the university. UMass was going to be joining the Mid-American Conference, aka the MAC, in 2012, and they would play some of their home games at Gillette Stadium. Morris would be fired after a 5-6 season in 2011 and was replaced by Charlie Molnar, who was the Notre Dame offensive coordinator at the time. Heading into the 2012 season, the university was preparing for a rough season, but expected the school's big alumni base to show up for games and show support for the program. When they played home games at Gillette Stadium, they would be playing in Foxborough, 100 miles away from the school. They had averaged 14,000 fans a game at the FCS level, playing at the old McGurk Stadium, and hoped to average more fans at Gillette Stadium. They needed to meet the 15,000 seat minimum required by the NCAA. Instead, they averaged 10,000 fans a game and only had 8,000 show up for their finale against Central Michigan. Despite collecting nearly $800,000 from UConn and Michigan to play 2 road games, the Minutemen still lost $700,000 on a budget that had already been inflated by nearly $600,000 in expenditures. They would go 1-11, allowing 445 points on the season, losing by an average margin of 37.1 to 12.7. Their only win came against Akron on the road, who finished that season 1-11 as well. The school faculty did not like the idea of this move and fought all the way through 2013, the year the school was making the move official. The faculty senate vote to reconsider the move failed with a 19-18 vote and one person abstaining. The staff felt the decision by the former chancellor to make the move was done hastily and was the wrong decision made for all the wrong reasons. According to Mass Live back in 2013, one issue that divided the faculty was whether it was properly following its own procedures and doing its due diligence in researching the issues of FBS football before making a ruling. According to BC Interrupted, the move is proving that UMass football is facing a mountainous struggle to remain as a viable football program. The football budget last year was $691,966, higher than its original projection, but that wasn't built to include other costs. The UMass athletic department spent $260,000 on scholarship requirements to satisfy Title IX. They spent $700,000 on marketing the program, a campaign that included billboards on MPTA buses and radio commercials. And they spent roughly $2 million as they began the renovations on McGurk Stadium with the intentions of making it a viable FBS facility. When all was said and done, UMass's football operating budget increased to over $7 million, with revenues well below that mark, thanks in part to a deal designed to satisfy their landlords at Gillette Stadium. Fans seemed hopeful as they felt they could grow their program with the university's lower academic standards, and they could cut into Boston College's recruitment, who was on a decline at the time. Things changed heading into 2013 as the students began to turn on the football program and wondered why the school with 20,000 full-time students couldn't use that $8 million to put back into them. And they wondered why they had to move the team, which drew well on Saturdays at home in their stadium that didn't require much renovation, to a place 100 miles away. The alumni base didn't turn out, and at the risk of trying to incite them, the school alienated much of its current student fan base, which dwindled from 35 buses to practically nothing. UMass even managed less fans per game than Harvard did in 2012. Things only got even worse as rumors were the MAC wasn't too thrilled with the bad football team that was with them being as a part-time member and choosing to keep their Olympic sport and basketball teams in the A10. Yet the NCAA made a formal announcement of UMass's admissions to the FBS in the summer of 2013, after the program met specified benchmarks over its 2-year transitioning years. The primary criteria centered around average attendance, an increase in scholarships from 63 to 85, and specific scheduling requirements. The NCAA did announce that the team must meet attendance requirements or face a 10-year probationary period. Things were a mess overall for UMass, but the one positive they had going was a lot of young players got playing time in 2012 due to injury. 2 freshmen got time at quarterback, 4 freshmen got opportunities at wide receiver, and 4 freshmen started at least one game on the offensive line. 2013 was expected to be a rough year, but they were expected to compete come 2014. 2013 would indeed be a rough season from UMass, as they would go 1-11 with their only win coming over Miami of Ohio 17-10 to give them their first home win in FBS history, and their first home win since they had beaten Central Connecticut on October 8, 2011, meaning it had been over 2 whole years and 4 days since they had won a home game. They even lost a game to an FCS program in Maine 24-14 at home in 2013. After a 2-22 record in 2 seasons, Molnar was fired and replaced by a returning Mark Whipple. Yes, the guy who had led them to their only national title in school history. Whipple found some success going 3-9 in his first 2 seasons, but after the 2015 season, UMass was forced out of the MAC due to rejecting full-time membership. The MAC did not want a football-only member that was 8-40 in their first 4 seasons, and as a member of the conference, and UMass did not want to move their other sports out of the A-10. The decision was made before the 2014 season, when they were 2-22 as a member of the conference. Conference Commissioner John Steinbrecher told ESPN, "We wanted full members. We're at a point if people want to be part of us, fine. If they don't, they don't. Let's move on." We had a very positive relationship with UMass. There were questions on whether UMass may drop back down to the FCS level again after their departure, but according to the university spokesman, John Sinnott, that was never the case. He told ESPN, "We are committed to FBS football and have been working with Carr Sports Consulting to examine future conference possibilities. We have been actively pursuing alternate options for conference alignment, but it's the university's best interest not to speculate on those at the time." UMass would choose to be an independent from 2016 until now. Under Whipple, the team would go 2-10 in 2016 and 4-8 in 2017 and 2018, but Whipple would step down on November 20th, 2018 after a 66-27 road loss to number 5 Georgia to close out the season. Whipple would go 16-44 in his second tenure as UMass head coach and finish with an overall record of 65-70 at the school. Replacing Whipple would be Walt Bell, who was the offense coordinator at Florida State at the time, and fun fact, his departure led to Sam Howell flipping from Florida State to North Carolina. After hiring the cheapest Power 5 coordinator available in 2012 and choosing to make a nostalgia hire in 2014, Bell was viewed as a young coach that could change the culture at the school. Dan Morrison from Underdog Dynasty wrote back in 2019, "Last spring, I was finishing my senior year at UMass. One day I overheard 2 football players complaining that Bell was working too hard. That's an embarrassing mentality. The fan culture around the school was dreadful, and the road ahead was going to be steep for Bell to build UMass into a respectable program. The New England area doesn't produce a ton of FBS talent, and they compete with Boston College and UConn among others for that talent. When recruits show up to a stadium that has less people in it than the local high school, why would they want to commit there?" The Walt Bell era started off extremely rough. They lost to Rutgers on the road 48-21, then fell to FCS Southern Illinois 45-20 at home, then came a 52-17 loss to Charlotte, who had transitioned to the FBS level after UMass in 2015. Then came a 62-28 loss to Coastal Carolina, who transitioned to the FBS level in 2017. They would go on to finish the 2019 season 1-11. Due to being an independent program in 2020, UMass only played 4 games, going 0-4, losing to Georgia Southern, Marshall, FAU, and Liberty by an average score of 40.25-3, and not scoring a touchdown in 3 of their 4 matchups. In year 3 under Bell, the program would continue to be a doormat, with the only win of the season coming at home against UConn. After a 1-8 start, Bell would be fired, finishing his tenure with a 2-23 record, and the Minutemen would finish 1-11 on the season. Replacing Bell would be another nostalgia pick for UMass, as they would bring back Don Brown, who had since been the defensive coordinator for Maryland, UConn, Boston College, Michigan, and Arizona since he had last been at UMass. In 2022, they would go 1-11, and in 2023, they would go 3-9. The program is in a bad place, and there's not a lot of positives surrounding the program for the foreseeable future. The only positive thing is the fact that they will be joining the MAC as a full-time member come 2025. While football fans seem happy, other UMass sports fans are extremely disappointed because it means they're leaving the Atlantic 10 Conference, a conference they were a founding member of in 1976. As schools across the nation changed their conference affiliations because of football, Bamford wanted to secure a conference home for the Minutemen. Many people think UMass should move back down to the FCS level, where they were a respectable program, playing regional rivals and competing for conference titles and even national titles. They have not had a winning season in football since 2010, before they even announced the transition, and are 24-112 since joining the FBS, which is a .214 winning percentage. They are truly the worst FBS program and have been since the transition, and there are no signs that that is going to change anytime soon. It is truly depressing as their administration has run the program into the ground and have scorned their fans and students in the process. It's heartbreaking as I remember rebuilding UMass in NCAA football 2013 and NCAA football 14 when they were the worst teams in the game. You would have thought in over a decade at the FBS level they would have at least one winning season to their name and maybe even a bowl game appearance. But that they do not. What do you think? How does one fix the UMass football program? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.